Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Franchise Show. I hope you're all doing well. This is the show where we get under the hat of some of the most important topics in franchising. So it's fantastic if you've joined us here live today. Apologies for the slight delay, some tech issues. That's because it's live, you see. These things are beautiful when they happen. Proves it's all live. Well, look, what is the Franchise Show? The Franchise Show is probably, as you can imagine, about franchising, but it's also about a heck of a lot more than that. It's about if you're a franchisor or a franchisee or an entrepreneur and you're interested in franchising and what it's all about. And this show is designed not necessarily to answer questions, but certainly to inspire some questions or have some thoughts you might not have had beforehand. So that is it. That's the Franchise Show. And how does it run each week? Well, each week we take a lovely topic and we take a lovely guest. And this week is absolutely no exception. On the guest front, we have a legend of a guest. I'm going to introduce the topic for this week, which is manual magic. Now, if you look on the right-hand side of the screen, you can see a lovely book. And I've been promoting this book for a long time. Look, it's the right way round, Penny.
Fantastic.
So we are going to be talking today all things manuals and knowledge sharing and how ops manuals fit into franchise businesses in the era that we're in and going forward into the future. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce, and I'm sure most of you know, the wonderful Penny Hopkinson. Penny, welcome to the Franchise Show. It's fantastic to have you here.
It's wonderful to be here, Harvey, and thank you very much for inviting me on your show. And hello, everybody.
Well, look, while I put a few faces on the screen here, perhaps you'd like to give a brief introduction to yourself and how you've come to write such a wonderful and useful book.
Well, it all started with my father because he was an engineer. And what he used to do was to say, this is what it does, this is how it does it, now you do it. And terrifyingly, he used to take me into his factory and he let me loose on a hot wire cutter, which if anybody knows, it's about 600 degrees centigrade. I was about 10 years old and he said, right, this is how it cuts blocks, now you do it. So terrifyingly, I started cutting the blocks. I don't know what my mother would have said, but perhaps it's good she never found out. But that really sort of set the scene, and I became a journalist, trade and tech journalist. Then I became an editor of a wonderful magazine called Media International, the European Journal for Planners of International Advertising. So I cut my teeth on marketing, advertising, and all those things that journalists never really get to talk about. And that led me into being a Middle East correspondent. And I went all over the Gulf states and Saudi Arabia. And I interviewed merchants, ministers, and members of ruling families and had an absolute ball for about 12 years. And then things started to slow. It became political. I'm interested in politics, of course, but as a socioeconomics correspondent, it didn't sit very comfortably, and my publications like Wall Street Journal, International Herald Tribune, and some other ones that I did front cover stories for, they fell by the wayside, not any advertising. So it did me out of a job. So it was a bit of a, I call it a crossroads, not a crisis, because it depends on what fork of the road you go to. So that led me into being a quality correspondent for the Institute of Purchasing and Supply, and I became passionately interested in quality management, total quality management, known as TQM, quality circles, and everything to do with Japanese Kaizen. And that meant that there was an entree into writing operations manuals. And I thought I'd set up a business, did proof of concept, had a baptism of fire doing the Lloyd's of London underwriting agents, procedures manuals, and then started Manual Writers International. First manual was a franchise manual, and then the second one, and then the third. And then I was invited to the BFA to join them as an affiliate professional advisor. And that led me to rewriting the franchisee and franchisor manuals. Then I got involved in the European Code of Ethics and also the Members Handbook. And so it went on, and then there was no choice whatsoever. Franchising was the way forward. And I've loved every minute of it. And in 2022, I considered revisiting the book that I'd planned back in 2008 when the financial crisis got to me, and sponsorship for the book I was going to write was withdrawn. Financial crisis, money had to be spent elsewhere. So revisited it in 2022, published Manual Magic in 2023, last October. And I thought, well, this is something of a legacy. Thank you, Harvey. Something of a legacy book, but it's the accumulation of about 35 years of being around franchising, which is the most fantastic industry, as I'm sure everybody will agree.
Well, that was an absolutely fantastic and wonderful introduction to a lovely person, and it's such a pleasure to talk to you. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. But before we start to get into that, I'd really like to recognize the wonderful people that have joined us here early on today. So we have Natalia. Fantastic to have you here, Natalia, former guest on the show. Expert legal beaver, or is it beagle? Not sure. There you go. And Natalia's, but hello, Harvey and Penny. Look forward to the discussion. Well, so do we. We've got Danny here. There you go. Look, you don't mind, but there's her book as well.
No, of course I don't mind.
Great to have you here, Danny. You were a fantastic guest. It was a pleasure to have you here. So looking forward to hearing your thoughts on manuals today. We've got the ever wise Simon Wise, so really looking forward to hearing your thoughts, Simon, on all things manuals. We have Bob Forst. Hello all, Bob Forst, Franchise Development Group. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts, Bob. He's always got some good things to say. Coming up is somebody you know, I think, Penny. It's Nick Plevin. In fact, you introduced us, so thank you very much for that. And Nick's put, hello, everyone from a very sunny Scotland. Oh, well, that's where the sun has gone, is it? It's not here.
Well, it's here.
Yeah, that's it. Well, look, Louise had to be here. Hello from Louise Harris, QFP, fellow manual marketeer. So great to learn from the very best. Well, that's absolutely fantastic to have you here, Louise, and really looking forward to hearing your thoughts as well as a fellow manual expert. So that's great. We've got Johnny Joseph, and Johnny's put hi from LA as well. So he's over in Los Angeles. We've got Tim Morris here. Everybody knows Tim. Good evening, franchise family. Great to be here and listen to Penny's story. Well, it's great for me to listen to that as well. Well, that's a good idea. I should have made a cup of coffee. We have Jody Reed, somebody I met fairly recently, and Jody is all in the sort of compliance space as well. So I think that would be an interesting one to get your thoughts, Jody. So great to have you here. Johnny's got a good question, so we're going to come back to Johnny's. We're just very quickly introduce Don Cohen. Don Cohen is a fantastic and wonderful chap and taught me everything I know about LinkedIn Live. So if you like what I do and the feel of it, please reach out to Don, because he's a fantastic chap and he taught me genuinely all I know, and I have a lot to be thankful for Don. So great to have you here, Don. So we've got a couple of good questions. So if it's all right with you, Penny, can we fire into some of these wonderful questions from these fantastic people?
Absolutely. Dive in.
Oh no, can't do that one, Johnny. Look, you've covered Penny's face, Johnny. That's
It's probably good.
I'm gonna read this one out in a different way. And Johnny's put, please share with us the worst thing you have seen and the best thing you have seen in franchise ops manuals. What is the there are 3 questions here, so this is good stuff, Johnny. What is the ideal number of pages, wow, for an ops manual? Look, let's take the first part of that question, Penny. What should we go for, worst or best? What should we go for first? But what's been the worst and the best things that you've seen in your time when you're trying to write a manual or improve a manual or improve?
Okay, the worst thing. It is many years ago, but I was asked to write a manual for a car valet franchise. And in doing the uncovering all the little bits of information that you need before you can form an opinion, I said, well, do you want to start from scratch? How's this? Oh, I've just left. I was a franchisee of one of the very well-known car valet franchises. And he said, I've got the manual with me. And I said, yes. And he said, what I want you to do is to take their name out and just put our name in. Right. And I said, well, for a start, there are huge copyright issues, but I'm afraid I will have to decline on this particular occasion.
Oh my goodness me. So it's just sort of taking the sleeve off a book and replacing it with a different one.
Yes, that's a very good idea. But not manual magic, thank you.
No. Absolutely.
Right. So the second thing, the best thing that I've seen is when the operation, and this ties in with your third question, Johnny. The best thing that I've seen is a mix of text and bite-sized video. And by that I mean we now have 5 generations under one workplace. So one size and type of medium doesn't fit all, particularly when you talk about the millennials and Generation Z, from your part of the world, Z. And these are the team members who are between anything from about 20 to 40. And I'll give you an example. Somebody came to me the other day. They had an 800-page operations manual, which they needed to upgrade. And they were expecting to upgrade it in text. So I asked what the profile of their average franchisee in terms of age is. Oh, they said, our franchise owner manager is around 40 and the team members are between 25 and 29. Mm. And I said, an 800-page text-heavy manual will not cut it.
It sounds like War and Peace. You could use that to hold open a door.
Yes, absolutely. Very good doorstop. Either that or a cure for insomnia. So what I basically said is you're dealing with the YouTube, TikTok, Instagram generations. They're digitally savvy and they don't consume information in the same way as we baby boomers. I mean, I love my text. I much prefer text to anything else, but I've been doing that all my working life, which is a heck of a long time now. But what do? The moment something goes wrong with the oven, I go to YouTube. So the same philosophy holds good. And when you're a 20-year-old, you don't want to be looking at or trying to read through a lot of information. You want it in bite-sized chunks because basically you have the attention span of a gnat. And if there's any 20-year-old here, it is not derogatory. What it means is...
It's all right. They've already switched off the 20-year-old.
I thought they probably would. What it really means is that you absolutely have to fit in with the way that people consume information. And it is very, very short bursts. So that leads me into what is the ideal number of pages for a franchise ops manual? 0. Because today we should be looking in terms, but I realize that this isn't practical, and there are still a lot of businesses that need to have text. But I would say 100 pages is probably the best. If it's going to be text heavy, please try to break it down into a multimedia mix.
Great advice there, Penny, and it's led rather nicely onto Simon's question. I think here we've sort of started to touch on this, but Simon's put, how has manual writing kept pace with modern technology? I'm thinking about AI here, of course. Well, really interesting. You spoke there about video, bite-sized chunks, things that are more manageable for different generations. How does AI sit in terms of manual writing these days? Does it have a place? Is it useful, or is it still more of a manual process?
Oh, I love this question, Simon. You're a person after my own heart, because when I started to write the book, AI had just really appeared. For anyone to use. ChatGPT was a reality, and I embraced it wholehearted. Used ethically, AI is fantastic. Use ChatGPT, use Perplexity, but the best use of it is to define the structure, which is the most important part of developing a manual. However you develop it, you need to have a solid structure, which is the blueprint of your business system. And you can do that with the help of AI. So, for example, I break the manual down into 5 parts. Those 5 parts you can put into AI. You can interrogate it, providing you use it contextually. And this is the real trick with asking ChatGPT to give some really hard and fast information to help you. You can do that with SOPs, and I've got loads and loads of examples. With the book, I have a QR code which runs throughout Manual Magic, and that goes into my free resource library, and that shows you how AI can come together to help. And if anybody wants to DM me after the show, I'm more than happy to show how to do that.
Fantastic.
It has a real place.
It's really interesting, isn't it? Because AI works, I mean, I'm not an AI expert, I'm going to say this right now, but, AI works by gathering together information from selected sources and then responding to questions from that information source. So I suppose you're saying if you put in the ops manual and other selective data and you make sure that the AI only pulls from that resource, then it can start to be, I suppose, fairly accurate for some, some basic questions. It does seem quite an interesting use.
One of the things that you can do these days, you can take a PDF, you can take an entire chapter or section of a manual, upload it, interrogate, and you'll get the answers. So you'll get your framework. There's no substitute for team members' knowledge. So if you've got a large franchise and a big team, there are ways of using it that will help you, but there is no substitute for your own knowledge. And if you just use AI to answer your questions and create content, you're going to have something that is really stilted, it doesn't have the right tone, it doesn't deal with the right audience. So for example, you wouldn't talk to a brand partner of let me try and find a different franchise. Let's say a brand partner with QuickFit. You wouldn't speak to them in the same tone and way as you would one man in a van.
That's very interesting.
Or a retail outlet. You wouldn't address them in the same way. Same with master franchisee or a franchisee. I mean, it's just a different level. So with a brand partner, you can assume that some of the systems are already set up. They just need to be modified to the franchisor way of working, their culture, their DNA. But if you're talking to one man in a van, or let's say another service orientated, drain clearing, that kind of thing, you would talk to them in a different way because they may not have had the management experience, and that needs to be something that they're being trained in, or they may not have that skill set that needs to be trained. So it's what we call Janet and John. I don't know whether anybody here is aware of those books. Yes, they were books. And they basically talk to you as if you were a 5-year-old. And I have a chat bot on my resource library. And that chat bot, if you ask it any question about the operations manual, it'll answer you, but you can ask it in 2 levels. You can go deep, or you can ask it, act as a 5-year-old.
That's good stuff.
So AI is fantastic. It's going to automate a lot of processes. I certainly would use it to develop an operations manual and a lot of other things besides, because it can translate. And if you've got a global franchise, it is fantastic.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's a great question. We're going to take a few more questions now, and thank you for that question, Simon, and thanks for answering that so beautifully. It was fantastic, that answer. I love that. I'm always writing stuff down here. I learn so much doing these. It's an absolute pleasure. We're going to have a question coming up from Danny. Then we're going to take one from Robert, one from Jason, and probably another one from Simon. So if you put a question up, please be patient with us. We're getting to them all. They're fantastic. It's always lovely to have you here. Also want to welcome Nick again to the show. And let's put up Danny's question, see what we make of this one. A lot of new franchisors dread writing the franchise manual. What are your top key pieces of advice to them? This is a great question. Goes right back to that sort of core, you're starting. Where do you start? I know you separated out into 5 parts, but how do you take this question from Danny?
Develop your manual in bite-sized chunks. There are 3 stages, probably in the same way as you wrote your book, Danny. The first is to map out your blueprint. The second is to populate the content. And the third is to edit it to a final polished product and then publish it.
Fantastic. That was simpler than I thought it was going to be then. I can
It's
write
all
it
in the book.
Absolutely, it's all in the book. Sometimes I think that things are simple when they're done well and when somebody who knows what they're doing is doing them.
Absolutely.
I always remember watching a bricklayer lay bricks, and I was talking to him, and it's a relatively simple thing to do if you're experienced and knowledgeable and you make it look easy. I love your simple description of how you go about what is a complicated process if you don't know what you're doing.
And that's only one. There are two other key things. One is to collaborate with somebody else in the business so that you support one another. And the third is always to have a plan. Always make a project plan and stick to it. You can revise it as things change, because that's bound to happen. But again, just like writing a book, you have a plan, you know when something needs to be finished, and just stick to it, and you'll make life a lot simpler.
Oh, I love that. Have a plan. Is it a cunning plan for any Blackadder fans?
No, it is. It's the usual thing, if you don't have a plan, you plan to fail.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, look, if you have just joined us today, this is the Franchise Show, and today we are talking all things ops manuals with the wonderful Penny Hopkinson, sponsor of our lovely show. And today the highlight and the spotlight is on your wonderful book, and I have a physical copy here. Please scan the QR code, and there's a way of doing this. If you are watching this on your phone, you have to do a screenshot, and then you can scan the QR code from there. So if you're listening on your phone, do that. So let's have a look. Who have we got coming up? Let's take a comment here from Jason. Jason's put, do you have software you host a digital copy of brands ops manuals for easy Z access and corporate updates? It's a great question.
Yes, there are three ways of doing it. First of all, you can do what people start their manual on. They start building up in Dropbox or Microsoft SharePoint. And there is a new type of storefront, if you like, for your manual, which has only just come into being. And if you DM me, I can give you the details. Then, of course, there's the internet and the portal, like the Ops portal, which is Louise's marvelous platform. It's what I call a lovely knowledge sharing environment. And then if you want to do video and do the little bite-sized chunks, there's also a dedicated dynamic knowledge sharing platform, which is Manual.2. It's known as Manual 2, but it's you can find it as Manual 2. And that is for large networks where video is very important, because all the processes can be visual, and it takes a lot less time to do video, and I'm sure Louise would agree here, a lot less time to do video than write something up.
Yes, absolutely. And video, we're going to come on to knowledge sharing, I think, in the second half of this, because I know it's a passion and a really important part of what you do. And I just wanted to take a little pause to ask you all a little bit of a favor. And I've done this before about 2 months ago, because I have to do this every 2 months. But if you could scan the QR code that's on the screen right now, it is going to direct you towards a collaborative article that I have contributed towards, and that will help me keep my lovely LinkedIn badge. So I'm going to leave it up for 5 minutes or so. If people could please scan that and just put a like on that, if you like it. If you don't, then then don't. But that would be fantastic. Let's have a little look. We've got somebody new that I'd just like to put up and recognize that they're there. And we've got Jamie Stewart, who is new to the show. So Jamie's put, really interesting show. Thanks, Penny. And Jamie is a super connector, helping entrepreneurs and coaches build their network. So great to have you here, Jamie. Really, really pleased, and looking forward to hearing your thoughts. Let's take a question from Nick. Although, Nick, you've blocked my QR code there with your big question. So anyway, let's see what Nick's put. Nick's put, how far should a franchise manual go into the operations of a franchise? Or does it depend on the franchisor? For example, should recruitment of staff be in the manual, or is that up to each franchisee to deal with? It's a really good question as to sort of how far a manual needs to go. You know, is it the blueprint for every aspect of the business, or is it certain elements?
Generally, you'd say that it should be an encyclopedia of the business, and there shouldn't be any question that remains unanswered. So this is really a difficult one, because it takes a long time to go in that kind of depth. So when you're just starting, you will have probably about 100 pages, if we deal in pages and text. When you get a really mature network, such as Coffee Republic, you will have a massive IP, and all that IP needs to be in the manual, because first of all, it's what the franchisee needs to know. Secondly, it protects the franchisor's IP, because once it's all written down like that, if somebody leaves and goes off with it, rather like my example on the first question of the worst operations manual, you can easily track who has stolen your IP. It is.
Sorry, go on. Sorry.
Right. So, should recruitment of staff be in the manual? Yes, it should. First of all, you should have the structure of the franchise and the roles and everything to do with how to recruit. And I always say you should have a section on recruiting the best the best team members. And then there is no mistake. So, I mean, as we all know, there has to be sometimes give and take, because today it's more difficult to recruit than ever. And it's a situation, and Nick and I have discussed this many a time, that employees have chosen their employer today because they want to align with their values and how they're going to be able to contribute to the franchise.
Yes, absolutely. Let's have a little look. We are going to get onto knowledge sharing, and because it's really important, but I just love all the questions that come in, and let's just quickly put up Nick's response to that. That's a great answer, because surely consistency of recruitment is key to a successful franchise. Absolutely. I'm going to put up a quick comment here by Alex, because Alex is of the demographic topic we're talking about here. So Alex has put, Penny is absolutely right. As someone approaching 20, I've learned it's not just about how much you say, but the quality of your words. It's inspiring to hear from someone with generational experience, and I'm thrilled to be here listening. Well, it's fantastic to have you here, and thank you for those words as well. You're right. It's powerful. Words are. What do you make of that? I think the way you put things and how you describe things and the medium you use to describe things is so vital and important.
Yes, I think it's having dealt with words since I was 21, and I'm afraid it's a long time since then, as I sit here. Words are fantastic, but they have to be put in the right order. And writing a procedure, as I'm sure Louise will agree, is not straightforward. It is an art. And you have to be able to, and again, this is a bit of advice to anyone writing a manual, you have to be able to see the process in your mind's eye. Absolutely. And at the end, when the manual is finished, you have to be able to say, well, if I stepped into that person's shoes, would I be able to operate? Would I be able to take over if, let's say, the manager was long-term sick? Would I be able to assume that role? And that is really a test of a successful manual.
I love that. That's very true, actually. It's very true. You know, can it be as powerful as you've just mentioned? Well, look, I keep saying we're going to do this, and I want to get onto the subject of knowledge sharing. And I know it's important to you, but how does an ops manual and the expression knowledge sharing fit together, and why is that so important?
This is my pet belief, because I would like to reinvent the operations manual as a knowledge sharing environment where everyone can participate, learn and grow. It would be absolutely wonderful if everybody here went off and said to anyone they know, let's call our operations manual a knowledge sharing environment. Because going back to Alex, I'm sure her generation are completely put off by the thought of an operations manual. I'm not so sure we're not either. Because the moment somebody says the operations manual, everybody throws their hands up in horror and says, oh no, I don't want to do it. And oh, I've got to do it. Well, let's use our IP creatively. Let's share our knowledge. Let's share our knowledge to the very best of our ability to help our franchisees succeed, because that's what we're all about. We want people to succeed. And if we arrange our knowledge, if we present our knowledge in a palatable format, then we're going to get greater engagement, fewer incidents, fewer accidents, and less wastage. And engagement means happier staff members. Just give a little illustration. Let's say we go through, let's say we do little bite-sized chunks and they're put up on a knowledge sharing platform. So you capture the QR code and that goes through. You can select the language you need, and then with captions, it's either read or you have it read to you. You need to strip down your coffee machine at the end of the day. And unfortunately, the barista has gone off sick. So somebody else has to step in. They're unfamiliar. So they capture the QR code, they go step by step at their own pace, and at the end of the process, they've seen everything they need to, and everything is clean, beautiful, ready and waiting for the next day. How much simpler is it than taking probably a page and a half, looking through the text, going up to do whatever you need to do on the coffee machine, maybe rinsing it through, going back to read the text, then going back up to do whatever you need to do. That will treble the time it takes to perform that procedure.
I love the use of QR codes in this as well, because you can put a QR code on the side of a coffee machine, or if it was a milkshake bar, it can be on the side of the milkshake machine, and you can kind of place these things where they need to be at the time they need to be. And like you say, then I love you keep mentioning bite-sized chunks. It's starting to make me a little bit hungry, if I'm honest. But I like that as well. And I think that when you talk about somebody who's of the age and generation of Alex, it's important to deliver this stuff in the right way. And as she rightly puts, it's the quality of the words, and it's the medium and the method of delivery of those. And if that's a video or an image, or a link or a LinkedIn live show, that they're all ways of getting great engagement with people rather than just those words. Words are very powerful, but the method of delivery is even more powerful.
It's always not so much what you say, the way that you say it.
Yes.
And I think we can all identify with some situation. And this is going to be a LinkedIn post. I got an electric toothbrush the other day. It's the first time I've got a proper electric one instead of one that I throw away every 3 months. And I looked at the instructions, and the first, I think there are 18 drawings of how to use this electric toothbrush.
Right.
And I try as I might. Do you hold it this way? Do you hold it that way? How long does it go? It links to your phone. My goodness, did I ever think to brush my teeth with my phone? I don't think that's quite right. But I looked at it. I could not make head nor tail of it. Words would have been fantastic. But I bet certainly Alex would have got it in one. So this shows this generational divide. And what we really need to do is, for knowledge sharing, we need to get the older generations and the younger generations to collaborate, because the younger generations have so many ideas. They see things differently from how I see them. So to work together for continuous improvement within the franchise and then translate that into the manual is invaluable.
Absolutely. I love that about getting generations to work together and to bring their own thoughts to that. And as a franchisor, we need to listen to our franchisees, listen to our get a diverse opinion from everybody involved when we're coming up for these things, to try and give a balanced approach. We are drawing towards the end. Let's take one more question from Simon. Simon's put, problem that I have seen is that the ops manual is viewed by the franchisors in the early days as a necessary evil, but as well all know, it should be the front and center of everything you do as a franchisor. You must evolve the manual as your business evolves, but you must also protect it. It's no coincidence that we have many Me Too brands in franchising. Some really interesting points there. The one I really like, and perhaps you could pick up on, is that it must evolve. Your manual must evolve. Perhaps as we draw to the end, you could perhaps touch on how manuals can evolve as a business evolves, and how you can approach that with your manual, and how often.
Well, the first thing is that if your manual isn't current, if it doesn't reflect the amendments and modifications to the business, then it's out of date and you're in breach of the contract. Pure and simple. But in practice, that's very different. People, absolute franchisors, hate. First of all, the manual is known as a necessary evil, and that's why it's so difficult for them to produce one. And secondly, they leave it till the last possible moment. 800 pages out of date? No, I don't think so. So this is why I want to call a manual a knowledge sharing environment, because I think it sends out the wrong signals today for a modern workforce. Millennials are nearly 30% of the global workforce by next year. If you add Generation Z or Z, then you have another large percentage coming on board. So extract that from the rest of your workforce, then you know that you need to be talking about modern terminology. And I know this is my huge crusade, but I've been talking in North America on podcasts, Australia, I'm doing South Africa, and everywhere I go, I am trying to switch the thinking. We all know it's an operations manual, but and a piece of toast is just a piece of bread.
Yes.
So if you use that same analogy, we can, as a main force for franchise operations manuals, and if there are any licensors here too, we can switch thinking and get franchisors and their team members on side and make it a really useful, dynamic tool that will help in continuous improvement and to scale the business.
Fantastic. Well, look, I think that is a perfect way to end today's episode. So I want to say, first of all, thank you so much, Penny, for your support and for your wonderful advice and the knowledge that you've shared today. It's really important for people to understand this and to think about questions around this. And hopefully this has inspired a little bit of thought. You can, and it has been up for a lot of the time, but please scan the QR code now that's on the right-hand side of the screen, and that will take you to all of the places you need to go to find out more and to meet Penny. Also, if you look at the ticker along the bottom that's been going the whole way, you've even got a phone number, so you can give Penny a call. So I'd also like to thank our wonderful community. This show is only what it is because of the people that are here and because of the questions that you put here. It really does drive this show. You know, it is all about you. So thank you so much for sparing the time to be with us. Before I get on to finding out and telling you who is on next week, Penny, would you like to leave our wonderful community with any final thoughts?
Yes, I'd love to. Anybody who's bought a copy of Manual Magic, I am just about to publish an ebook for a workbook. So it's great for even single operators, just starting your franchise. If you want to have a workbook, but also great for teams. So if anybody would like to DM me, and there is a little trick here, anyone who hasn't left a review on Amazon who might have bought a book, let me have, if you would be kind enough to do a review, I'm looking to do 35 reviews by its first anniversary on the 3rd of October. I will send you a free workbook as soon as it's published.
What an offer there is. Well, get reviewing Penny's book and get buying it. I did that. There it is. And I left a review. So look, again, thank you so much, Penny, for being on the show. Next week on the franchise show, so this is 5:15 on July the 30th. Next Tuesday, we have the wonderful Jodie Marsh from the EF 100 Awards and Elite Franchising. And we are going to be talking about the franchise awards. Sorry, I was just waving to my son there. You can tell it's live. We are going to be talking about the franchise awards and how to get involved in that. So there you go. Please join us next week for that. And until next time, have a fantastic week.